Oh, let me mute mine too, sorry. Oh, where's the toolbar? It disappeared.
Hello, everyone at the Animation Guild, and welcome to our virtual Lunch and Learn today on ergonomics. My name is Haley, and I work in the Employer Relations Department at Providence. Val Hunter, who is here with us today, is a physical therapist and certified hand therapist from the Therapeutic Associated at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank. She's put together a great presentation today that I think will be very useful for you. I also wanted to say thank you to the Family and Membership Committee in conjunction with the hospital that has been able to provide this service for you guys. There will be a brief Q&A section at the end, so I wanted to let you know that if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the question box on your screen. If you look, there will be a little kind of toolbar. There'll be a little pop-up window that says Q&A. So you'll just go ahead and click that, and you could submit any questions that you have starting now up until the end of the presentation. And lastly, I do want to thank Leslie Simmons for working together with us to get this scheduled today. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Val Hunter. Thank you so much.
Welcome. This is a new experience for me. I have spoken over many years, many times, but not live on screen. So I've been a certified hand therapist for about 25 years. I've been 41 years as a therapist and 30 years working with animation ergonomics. And I've seen a lot of changes in the creation of animation art over that 30-year period, from drawings on paper to drawing into your screens. But unique challenges for artists remain, even with the changes we've done in using things like the Wacom Cintiq. Today, I would love to share a few of my ideas and a little of my experience with you in working with artists with problems with hands, and happily send you out to try some new ideas for yourselves. So, first slide. Why ergonomics? Well, ergonomics really studies how to best position ourselves for what we do every day, whether we're drilling, whether we're using machinery, whether we're using computers. If we position our bodies in the most functional manner and take enough rest periods and break periods, we can get a lot farther along with what we do. Animation artists have very unique workstations and challenges to their time and productivity. You have dual monitors at times. You have dual keyboards. You have artist pens. You have things that others don't use. And so trying to remain creative, remain imaginative, and stay in comfort is important because creativity is stifled when people are in pain. Now, next slide. I like to look at some basic ergonomic positioning because this is what we all do at home, many times in our work, is looking at a basic keyboard setup. And there's a few points that apply to everyone. First, our line of vision to the screen shouldn't be straight across. It really needs to fall about the middle of the screen. A good way to find out if your vision is in the right place is to get comfortable, put your hands on your instruments, close your eyes, and then open them. And what you will see, hopefully, is about halfway down to a third of the way down. If you're hitting at the top of the screen or the bottom of the screen, you need to readjust your height. When we're sitting, we should have our eyes falling on our paperwork or our drawing board at, again, a little bit of an angle here. For a Cintiq, probably about a 45 to 65 degree angle, not a flat surface. For our arms and hands, there should be a slightly downward glide from the elbow to the keyboard, and the wrist should remain neutral. I should be able to draw a line from the ear to the shoulder to the elbow to the hip and have it upright if you're getting good back positioning. You should be able to sit to the back of your chair with some lumbar support in your inward curve of your lower back, and you should be able to have a slightly straight or downward angle to your knees, your feet flat on the floor, and it's important that you have a little bit of a drop off to the chair that you're using around the front of the chair, because if it bangs into your knees, you will simply move forward and then you have no back support. Okay, next slide. There were a few artist concerns that were shared with me before I put this together, some which I knew, and they kind of coincided, and I grouped them into 5 major concerns. Now, at the end of our time together, I will be taking lots of chat questions, I hope you have them, of things that concern you in your everyday work, but these 5 are very important for all artists. The hand and wrist pain that comes from gripping pins all day. The sitting positions for a standard or a Cintiq monitor. How should you sit? Sit versus stand monitors. Which is better? How do you position when you've got 2 monitors and 2 keyboards? And eye strain. How do we protect our eyes? How do we prevent fatigue? Next slide. So let's look at finger fatigue first. When you're choosing a pin, I noticed that the Wacom has more than one size of pin. I like people to choose the widest pin available, and you can even add a little bit of a pin widener, you can get foam ones, or a little bit of foam or taping to it to make it easier to hold. A wider pin requires less force on your fingers than a skinny pin. Also, the slipperiness of the pin. If you can put a little tacky tape, and any kind of tacky tape like that is good to use to give your pen a little bit more texture. It's going to be easier to hold and again take less force. Tendon gliding exercises, things to stretch our fingers and relax our fingers, do help. You know, a lot of times people, I'll have them do it about every 20 or 30 minutes. And I'm going to see if I can position my hand here where you can see it. And if you curl your fingers a little, roll to the fist, touch to the bottom, make a flat hand like a duck quacking, and straight up, that's a tendon glide, kind of calisthenics for your hands that loosens them up. And then one of my favorite things is the lentil beans. If you take, and I apologize, I don't have a bag of lentils today. I opened them up and they had weevils in them. But if you take your bag, plastic bag, fill it with 2 pounds of lentil beans. Those are the small flat beans you make soup out of. Put them in the bag, roll your hand around in the bag. To relax your hand, you can squeeze them, they'll move right out of your fingers. They are much better to use than trying to use a squeeze ball, because a squeeze ball just puts more force in your hand. The lentil beans move with you for more normal hand positioning. Okay, next slide. Now, when we're looking at sitting, you need to take a look at your chair and realize, first of all, that no chair fits every person. Chairs are made, generally they'll come maybe one size, maybe they'll have 3 sizes, small, medium, and large, but they are designed for the average person. So if you happen to be an average person, great. But we usually have to do a little adjustment. And what makes a chair ergonomic is simply having things that we can adjust. So you want to start and check to see if your seat back is upright and supported. If you're lounging backwards, that's not a good position for working on a Wacom board Cintiq. If you are sitting in the chair, the lumbar curve or that curve at the bottom of the chair should fit into your lower back curve. If it doesn't, it's really easy to add a low back roll. You can get lumbar rolls, lots of different office supply stores or at the back store. The seat depth should allow at least 3 inches of space behind the knees when fully back in the chair, and it shouldn't be more than 6 inches back, or you're going to have a really sore bottom at the end of the day. If you happen to have a seat tilt, that's great, because tilting forward, kind of in the horseback riding position, is a really comfortable way to have your arm closer to you when you're doing your drawing. But it is important to have that little bit of a roll off at the front of the edge so it doesn't cut the back of your legs. And the seat height should allow for your hands to be at keyboard level or about the center of your monitor if you're drawing when your feet are flat on the floor. So if they're not, and you can't lower yourself, you can always put on a foot riser to raise the level of your foot up. Next slide. Now, standing desk, there's pros and cons to everything. When you have a standing desk, it is better for your circulation. People were not designed to sit all day. We have to be taught that. Something I ask people to do if they're using a sitting desk is to make sure that they stand up from their desk and walk around the room a little bit for 30 to 60 seconds every half hour in order to relieve the stress of sitting all day. And that does go a great deal towards relieving it. But keep in mind that standing desk, while it makes it easier to reach your monitors back and forth, may also be very tiring on your legs. When you stand all day, it's harder on your veins, and people have more tendencies towards varicose veins. So it's kind of a trade-off, back pain, varicose veins. But most importantly, choosing good footwear. If you're going to be doing a standing desk, you want to have a low-heeled shoe with a good instep support, or use an anti-fatigue mat, which is a soft mat that you can stand on that takes up a little bit of the pressure. Okay, next slide. Now, something I was asked a lot is, where do I put my screens when I use more than one screen? And it really has to do with where you're going to be doing your work and how much you're focused on which screen. If you are 50-50 with your screens, you put them in the center like you see here, with the screens close to the middle and your keyboard activities in the center. But let's say you're 80-20, the amount of work you do, or 70-30. Then what you want to do is decide which your dominant eye is and put the main keyboard at the dominant eye. So people then ask me, what's my dominant eye? Next slide. We're going to find out. To find your dominant eye, it's kind of fun. You touch your index fingers together. Can you see my triangle? To form a triangle, you stretch out your elbows, and you're going to look through the space that it forms at a small object about 20 feet away. Once you have looked through and seen the object, close one eye and open it, and close the other eye and open it. You will find that the image is only perfectly centered with one of your eyes. That's your dominant eye. So it's a fun party game. Next slide. So along with making sure that we're using our dominant eye for most of our work, eye strain and fatigue really primarily come from looking into a close object that has a fair amount of bright light for several hours. And the American Academy of Optometrists really supports the 20-20-20 rule, which is you need to look away from your screen about every 20 minutes for 20 seconds at something 20 feet away. You know, pick an object that you like. You know, I look back at Mr. Lincoln here, but reorganizing where you focus really helps your eyes to be less fatigued at the end of the day. And the other main problem that contributes to eye fatigue is dry eyes. You know, we blink 15 times a minute normally. Don't realize it, but we do. But studies have shown that when looking at a monitor or an iPad or a phone, we tend to blink only 7 times a minute, which causes your eyes to dry out. So while you're doing your 20-20-20, close your eyes for 10 seconds and then blink 5 times at the end of that to relieve your eyes and make sure you're moisturizing them. It is safe to use artificial tears without preservatives to lubricate your eyes unless you have an eye problem where you should not be doing that. That's always something to talk about to your doctor, but it can be helpful to have a little extra lubrication when you're doing a large project. Okay, next slide. Now, as a physical therapist and hand therapist, I get lots of questions about wrist supports. Generally, I'd rather have people use a soft kind of support rather than a firm support unless you have a diagnosed problem and are given a specific splint from your therapist. Because isolating motion is really not very functional for the body, and it's not really good for your body unless you have a medical problem that requires it. But soft gloves like isotoner gloves, they are great. You can get the therapeutic ones with fingers that are open that really help to keep down swelling. Soft thumb wraps, like there's one called the Comfort Cool thumb wrap, which is really nice for giving a little thumb support. Or bicycle gloves, weightlifting gloves that you get at the gym can give a little support to your palms and wrist and fingers without inhibiting motion. I have had a lot of questions lately about blue light glasses because we're becoming much more aware that blue light keeps us from sleeping, and you know, they tell you don't look at a lot of blue light sources right before you go to bed. Don't have a source of blue light in your room, on your clock, on your television, because it can wake you up or keep you up. But for blue light glasses, as yet, there really isn't any good study that supports that they make a difference. So I have to warn you on that. The good thing is that there's nothing that says that they hurt your eyes, but they're very expensive. So it's not wrong to use them, but before you go and spend a lot of money on something that is yet unproven, and it's true by any kind of really good medical science, the American Academy of Optometry recommends staying with the 20-20 rule, and it does recommend that we always use sunglasses when out of doors, because that does affect very strongly the amount of wear and tear our eyes take on the cornea. Now, dim lighting has not been shown to actually damage eyes, but does fatigue them. So it's better to have a little diffused light in the room rather than just having a straight dark room. If the light is above, or if the light is off where it's not directly in your line of view, it is much better to have. So I have a small light on whenever I use my computer. It's also important that your computer isn't facing your screen, a bright light, or a window. Okay, next slide. Additional splint supports that can be helpful are using armrest, so you're not leaning on your elbows. You do have to watch out. I'm sorry, you're not leaning on your forearms, but you do have to be careful not to lean on your elbows and create another problem. So using armrests, they can be attached to the desk, they can be on the chair. Ideally, they're movable so you can position them where your comfortable posture is. And using lumbar rolls, I really find it helps the back a lot. We all tend to sit forward, especially using the angled Cintiq. And having a lumbar support is very, very helpful for the length of time, though I still want people to get out of their chairs every 20 to 30 minutes just to change that position. Okay, and next slide. Now, let's get back to what you mainly do, which is using the Cintiq. And positioning the Cintiq, you want to position your arm so that when you're drawing, you're trying to draw around the center 2/3 of the drawing where you're doing the majority of your work. It's good to make sure that you have a chair that's upright or a little bit tilted forward. The screen should not be flat down on the desk. It needs to be angled upright. If you're doing this at home, it needs to be on some kind of a carriage or on an attachment arm or on a desk support that allows it to be firmly positioned so you're not hanging onto it with one arm while you're drawing with the other. You want to make sure that your head alignment is upright and that your grip on your pen is relatively light, which means that you have a pen size and a pen texture that you can easily, comfortably hold. It does make a huge difference at the end of the day. And so I put this slide in here. I have to say I looked at about 25 different slides, and this was the only one that I found that I would say I was happy with. So it is somewhere where we have to work with it, is getting comfortable with where to put our screens. Okay, next slide. Now, right now we're all at home. And being at home, most of our desks that we use at home are not suited well for what we do for long-term computer work. In fact, the majority of people I know now don't even have a desk set up like this at home. You know, my husband and I are older, so we still like the standard monitor, and we got a good one that sits on the desk. But I find that my daughter and her friends tend to be curled up on the couch, and they're, you know, heading out into the park, and they're doing their work on lots of other places without a key setup. If you're going to be doing any significant amount of work from home, you need to commit yourself to a solid spot that you can adjust to your ergonomic needs. The desk surface needs to be chosen for the type of monitor support that you're going to use. It's good that the Cintiq now comes in a lot of display stands when you buy it. But you might still want an extender arm to position that fits onto the desk. So if you use an extender arm, you're going to want to make sure there's a place for it to clamp onto. You want to bring your Cintiq to where it's close to you, where you can easily draw without extending your arm. The more you extend your arm, the more shoulder soreness you get, the more neck soreness you get, and the more arm fatigue you get. Arms are meant to be close into our bodies. We reach out for things and we bring them back. We don't hang out there for long periods of time. You want to look and see if you're keeping the bright glare off of your screen, because we have more windows in our homes. So make sure that you can either cut the light from the window if it's behind you, or keep your light off to the side. My computer is facing really what isn't a very attractive background, except I like Mr. Lincoln. But if I turned, I would have the window over to my left, and that would put light on my screen. Where it is now, I have a nice clear screen with no bright light on the screen. And please remember to always get up and take a standing break each 30 minutes. It's so easy to just stay in your seat trying to finish something. And don't forget your 20-20-20. It applies at home for your eyes too. Okay. Next slide. And our last actual slide here is I want to talk about exercise and relaxation. The harder we work and the busier our schedule is, the more frequently we need to take our breaks. And a break does not need to be a 10-minute long time away that messes up our time. It does need to be effective, meaning that you get enough of a break to work. When people stand up from their keyboard to take their 30 to 60 seconds away, what I find people do is the 10-second break. They take their hands off their pen, they stretch, they stand up, they sit down, and they're back to go in 10 seconds. And that didn't do it. So do make sure you're taking a long enough time. Now, when it comes to exercise, there are so many choices. Generally, we want to try to get some kind of aerobic exercise 3 to 4 times a week. The reason why is that when we're focused and when we're stressed, we burn up our natural pain chemicals, our endorphins, that are in the brain that help to make our whole body less painful. Endorphins are replaced by either good sleep or aerobic regular activity. So taking the time to walk, to swim, to dance, to run, Zumba, cycling, gym, whatever gives you joy is good. I do try to focus people away from things like a good choice to avoid would be kickboxing, because it's hand strike intensive. You really don't want to be doing the same thing to relax you as what your hands are already doing, hand intensive. I do tell people don't count gaming and being on your phone and talking to friends on the phone as really your relaxation time, because that's as hand intensive as what you're doing. Pick something that gets you going out and talking to someone, though that is a little more of a challenge now with our mask. But taking that time to exercise really will increase your comfort and your longevity by giving you that extra endorphin stimulation. And then getting good sleep at night. Make sure you don't have a television, preferably not having a TV in the room, but that there's something you can cover the base of it so you don't have blue light in your room. Getting sufficient sleep at night. So often we want to stay up and keep talking to friends well into the evening. You really need your rest if you're going to be able to be comfortable producing, because it's during your sleep that your body turns on its workforce and repairs everything. Now, that is the end of the slide part of the presentation. I do want to talk a little bit about posture, so you can turn off the slides and put me on. And am I on screen now? Great. I'm seeing my producer Daisy, so I'm not sure. Okay. In doing exercises, it's also nice to do some things to relax your body at the station while you're doing your work. And so one of my favorites is to do the tendon glide, and I'm just going to demonstrate it to you. Now you can see me. Straight fingers, curled fingers, fist, and then I touch the bottom of my palm, and then I make like a duck, finger here and back up, because you have muscles that attach to multiple places on your hands for all this wonderful dexterity, and they get stiff when they're in one position a long time. So tendon gliding is a nice way to relax. There's an exercise I like. I call it the Lady Macbeth, for those Shakespeare lovers out there, is you want to get swelling out of your fingers when they've been in static posturings. And a really good way is to go through the hand washing motion. You go around and through your fingers like this. And just kind of squishing your fingers together there and washing, stroking the back of your hands. If you do this for a couple of minutes, it's amazing how you'll find your fingers move easier, because when they're dependent, when they're hanging down, they get more swollen. Now, there's a group of exercises that I included that if it hasn't been delivered to you, I believe that Leslie has it. If she doesn't, I will send it on, because it's a good thing to clip by your monitor and have on hand, because it has a few suggestions of exercises that I will guide you through. First, head and neck. You want to do, I don't particularly like head rolls. If you have any kind of neck problems, head rolls can irritate them. So I go forward, and then I look over at the left side, or the right, doesn't really matter. Over to the right side, back to the middle, look up at the ceiling, and shrug your shoulders once you're back in there, because that relieves the tension of holding your head and neck in one spot. I like to put my hands behind my head, or you can use one hand, and you're actually going to push your head back like a turtle in the shell, like that. Makes a little double chin. That's okay, it won't give you a double chin, it just makes a double chin. We look so great on film, okay? Because that tightens up the muscle that holds your neck upright. When you're forward, and if you slouch, your head tends to come forward. And now this whole weight is no longer supported on your back and your shoulders, it's hanging forward. So you get a lot of tension right here at the back of the neck. Doing that little backward glide or pushing back in your hand will relieve a lot of stress and realign your posture. Stretching your muscles, we get this tightness. Everybody gets the side of the neck that's tight. So, really nice way to stretch that. And you're going to laugh at this one because it looks funny. My right hand here, this is my relax arm. I'm just putting it up there to get it out of the way. And then I'm pulling my head kind of down, nose to armpit, for a little stretch right back here. And you can do that on both sides. The upward arm just releases, it doesn't do anything. The forward arm pulls down and stretches that tight place. Then stretching your arms back behind you, that's a nice stretch. So you just reach to the back, if you can get them together, that's good. Sliding your arms up and down on the wall helps to realign your posture. Just stand against a wall and slide your arms up and down. Finding a corner or a doorway, be careful not to stick your fingers in the doorway. Put your hands on the side and lean into the doorway, which gets you a nice stretch across the front. When you're using your arms in front of you all day, your shoulders come forward. When you stretch them back out in the hold-up position, it relaxes them. Then, the prayer stretch, Om, relieves the pain at the bottom of the hands. And reaching out forward and bringing on a straight arm the wrist down, which stretches the opposite side. Lastly, we'll get too sore there, triceps. Bringing the arm up and stretching towards the center of the back so that your elbow right in here gets stretched out. And then I did include my hand washing exercise on there. So if for some reason you don't have these exercises, I will be checking with Leslie and make sure she has them to send them to you. And I also included in our program today for you to have to keep a copy of my ergonomic positioning, because it's a nice reference, and some ergonomic guidelines that you can read and follow through. So as I said, those are something that I have as supplementals that you'll be able to review. So remember, posture is important. How we position ourselves, how we use our body, the rest breaks we take, the exercise that we do, and using our equipment the best way we can makes a huge difference to the longevity of artists. And as a passionate lover of animation for many years, it's really important to me for you guys to keep working. So I thank you. And now I'm going to kind of open it to your questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Go ahead and her pin.
Now, help me with the questions here.
Okay. Can you go ahead and turn your volume down now?
Okay. I'm muting
so that Perfect. Just so they don't get feedback for there. Okay, so wonderful, Val. Thank you so much. Those were some really great tips that I know everybody is going to really appreciate. Now, there were there's some great questions that came in, and quite a few actually. Some of them you might have already mentioned or touched on. So I'm just going to go ahead and read as many as I can. If we don't get to any by chance, we'll go ahead and send them in an email to Val, and then she can go ahead and compile a response, and we can send that out to you in case we don't get to your question. So, okay, so the first one is, again, some of these you might have touched on, but if there's anything else you want to add to it, this would be a great time. So the first one is, I have elbow pain. Is there any way to make it better?
Yes. Elbow pain is really common. Most of the time it's on the outside of the arm here. Sometimes it can be on the inside of the arm. Those two stretches, this one and this one, the prayer stretch and the extended arm stretch, are elbow stretches. If your elbow's hurting, you need to look at how far you're reaching to get to your monitor, because you want to have your arm in closer, or you want to make sure that your screen is not too upright. It should be 45 to 65 degrees, not up and down. If it's too close up and down, then you're doing this, straight up and down, which is hard on the elbow. And if it's too far out, you're reaching. Okay, next question.
Wonderful. Okay, so the next question is, I tend to hinge forward at my hips ever so slightly when sitting. How can I curb this tendency?
I'm not sure I want you to curb it, because if you are hinging forward, not slumping forward, but actually just shifting forward, you're kind of trying to get into that horseback riding position. What you can do is see if your chair has the ability to tilt forward a little bit, which automatically puts you in the position you're trying to get into and still gives you back support. Or you can add a wedge pillow to your lumbar area, right back in here, the lower part of the back, to make it more comfortable when you're holding that position. Okay.
Great. Okay, the next one is, when I'm spending a lot of time writing on the computer, I develop extreme shoulder blade pain. What do you suggest to prevent that?
Again, I'm going to send you back to your positioning, because pain between the shoulder blades or up in the upper part of the back generally happens because we're holding our arms out unsupported. So you either need to get closer to your work so you have less reach, or if you need to have the reach, this is where you might like to use a forearm support so that you don't have to be holding it with your shoulders. It also might be that you are staying a long time at the computer and that you need to make sure to stand and stretch your position, relieve that length of time that you're holding that static outreaching posture for. You might also see if you have your chair tilted backwards, that requires more reach. Again, anytime your hands are out like this, they're hanging on the back of your shoulders, and that creates the pain. So to get your arms closer or to get yourself closer to your work is going to help.
Great. Next one is, do you have advice for those who experience bad lower back pain due to a larger chest?
You know, that's an interesting question. You know, when you have low back pain, because your posture is not in good alignment. There was one other handout that I had, I'll pull it up here, that hopefully I will make sure to get there if you guys don't already have it, that talks about postures. And one of the biggest problems I find for back pain is when people are sitting and they're forward. They're kind of crunching in the middle rather than staying upright. Now, something which does help us ladies who are generous, and I'm generous, is using a really firm bra support with a wide back support that helps to keep us in better alignment. Obviously, there are some times when surgery might be helpful for that, but I really like people to work on their strength of their back muscles to give them a little better strength and to try to take a look at their posture to see if they need to be a little more back support to keep them upright. Okay.
Thank you. And I know I still see some questions coming in. I'm just going in order of them for now, but if we don't get to your question, just a reminder, I am going to go ahead and email all of these over to Val, and I'm going to have her compile a list of all the answers, and then we'll send that out to you. So don't panic if we didn't get to your question. We will get it answered for you one way or another. So the next question is, what is your opinion on vertical mice?
There. Sorry, I didn't unmute myself. A vertical mouse is a nice change. There are a lot of different mice. I mean, obviously, this is your standard one, regular one there. What's important in doing work with your mouse kind of gets back to the amount of time you're spending and the amount of reach or compression you have to do. So we went from standard mouse like this, we went to using trackballs where you're just rolling with your fingers. I really hate people trying to use the little mouse that comes with a laptop or a tablet, because those are really hard on your fingers to use. A vertical mouse is a nice tool because what it does is allow you to change the position you're using the mouse in rather than one place. But again, it kind of depends upon the amount of work you're doing and how much you're using the mouse. I have had people who are clicking their vertical mouses and then they come to me complaining of finger stiffness. So there is no one instrument that is perfect, but some instruments are better for some people, some for others, and it's certainly worthwhile giving one a try if you've been unsuccessful with taking your rest breaks or doing your stretches.
Wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick 2 more questions, and then we'll go ahead and see if Leslie has anything to add, and then we can go ahead and wrap it up so we get you guys out of here on time. So the next one is, would you recommend hot or cold compress for tendon/wrist pain?
I like to use heat before I'm going to be doing my exercises to kind of relax me, or when I'm really sore and using a little heat. But I like to use cold when I've been doing something vigorous and I want to cool the area down. The difference between heat and cold: heat stimulates the surface to increase some fluid volume there, even a little bit of swelling, but has good muscle relaxation. Cold tends to chase swelling out of an area, makes the muscles feel a little stiff, but also contributes to relieving pain. So as an example, if you have someone with that elbow pain, that's a small localized area, doing an ice rub on it for about 3 minutes, literally with an ice cube, or putting a cold pack on it for about 8 to 10 minutes, really can help that immediately inflamed area to feel better. But if I'm waking up stiff and sore in the morning in my back or my hands, I'm going to want to put my hands in something warm water, warm paraffin. They have a paraffin bath at home, or just a warm towel. And I'm going to want to put a little bit of heat on my back before I stretch it. So both of them do similar things. Some people respond really well to one or the other, so try it and see. But generally, we warm you up before you do activities and we cool you down when you're physically stressed. Okay.
Great, thank you. That totally makes sense. So here is the last question, kind of a little ending on a lighter note here. What do you think about those pedal machines that allow you to pedal while sitting at a desk?
Well, I have to confess, I have not tried that on that. I don't know. I think the idea of activity is great. I think something like that would be fine if it gets you into a good position. I find that most of the pedal machines, it's really hard to have good support through your legs when you're on a pedal machine. So in all fairness, I should look into it more, but I tend to think it's better to be more static. One thing I might suggest for someone who wants a little movement is you might consider what they call an exercise ball or Swiss ball, which is a large, they can be anywhere from 22 to 26 to 30 inches in width. When you blow them up, what you want is a ball that puts you in a sitting position where you're high enough for your desk and your feet are on the floor. But the idea of the ball is that you can shift forward with your hips and shift back and move around, and it keeps your legs and feet active. And I have had quite a few animators who have found that they love to have the Swiss ball as an alternative to their chair choices because they like the feeling. Now, you have to be reasonably coordinated and not fall off the ball. But at the same time, that's a better way, I think, of engaging your hips and your legs than trying to focus on pedaling and focus on drawing at the same time. Okay.
Thank you so much. So there's probably another 15 to 20 questions we didn't get to. So again, I will go ahead and compile those, get answers from Val, and then have Leslie or someone send those over. So Leslie's going to go ahead and give an announcement.
I promise to do that quickly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Val, Daisy for producing it, Haley for moderating. Also, the other crew members at the Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Terry Walker and Henry Liu, who also helped us set up this very important webinar. Unfortunately, Kristen Donner, the chair of the Family and Membership Committee, and Kyle Neswald, the co-chair of the FAM Committee, had a little bit of a technical difficulties trying to jump on. So they just want to let you guys know that they're very grateful to Val and Providence St. Joseph Health and Services for partnering with us today. And if anybody's interested in the events that the FAM committee puts on, you can always email them at animationisfamily@gmail.com. And there is also a Facebook page that they have that's Animation Parents of LA. And they also have a blog that's animationisfamily.blogspot.com. Oh, look at you, Russian Blue. I did not get the materials that you shared, Val. So once those are sent over to me, I will send it out to everybody that RSVP'd. That's why we had the form, and it's always great to have your emails so that we can follow up and send out important information like this. I also want to thank the WIA members that joined. We also have some students that came on. So it's always important to remember ergonomics early on and take care of yourself. The IA is very safety centric, and this is a safety issue in the workplace, your health and welfare. And if you are experiencing pain, it is your employer's responsibility to help you get past that pain if it's on the job injury. And that includes wrist issues, neck issues, back issues that you're experiencing while you're actually doing the work. So we're figuring out a way, like maybe a Google form that you guys can fill out when you have an issue or have a question about how, especially right now working from home, we know a lot of people having questions about, like, I just want a chair. How can I get this chair? They don't want to give me a chair. A lot of you are going through IT for these requests. This is a human resources issue, not IT. So we'll be posting information like that on our Discord server that was just set up, which is really awesome. And yeah, I think that that's all I have. Again, thank you so much, Val. This was really great. It's I've 3 times had to get physical therapy for my wrists and for a neck issue and back issues. And so it's always important. It's a great reminder of, you know, posture. I don't have a keyboard holder. I have drawers. So I'm like, yes, now my hands are more in an angle. All the exercises are great. So thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who joined. I hope that you got something out of this webinar. And yeah, that's it for me.
And I'd like to say one thing. Thank you to the entire group who put the time in to listen to what I had to say, to share the ideas, and to share your questions. Thank you.
Yes, as just a quick wrap up, again, I thank you so much for joining us today. on behalf of Providence. And I do have, like I said, probably 15 to 20 more questions. So they're really great. And I know you guys want answers. So we're going to go ahead and make sure Val gets all of those answered for you. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your Friday and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy Juneteenth, everyone.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Haley?